Hello, and welcome to the We Get to Do This podcast. My name is Kailee.
And I'm Jacob.
And we are your co-hosts.
In this show, we're going to dive into all things our lives, from our partnership to romance to entrepreneurship to growing our businesses together, our fitness journeys, and we're going to have a ton of different guests on that relate to what I just said in some way. We're hoping you enjoy the show, and if you do,
please feel free to follow us, leave us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and enjoy.
And if you don't like the show, tough. Thank you.
Thanks. Welcome back to... What episode is this?
Are we going right now?
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be episode 47.
This is not a blooper, so we're going.
This is live. This is live. And we haven't had, since the proposal, we haven't had as many plays. So either all of the plays, like less than half since the proposal. So I don't know if we scared everyone off or what happened. What do you think?
I think that we should talk about love, is what you're saying. That's the moral of the story here.
Anywho.
We also haven't really gone off on our tangents lately.
Maybe that's it. Maybe we need to go on a tangent. What are we mad about? What are you mad about?
Where do I begin? Well, our tangents today actually are going to be reflected in our conversations we related around Grandma's marathon for this last week. Hence Jacob's vintage hat that he has here, because in case you didn't know, he was a Grand Ambassador, which you could have heard on the episode from 2 weeks ago, about what to do when it gets hard. But today we're going to talk about what's been happening recently and just everything that we kind of learned and how everything went up north. Why are you smiling?
I think we need to get into brass tacks. What did you do this weekend? You're glowing. What did you do this weekend?
I PR'd.
And what pace did you hold?
Well, according to Grandma's official time, 7:34, but according to my watch time, 7:32. Thanks.
It's pretty impressive, babe. Sub 140 half. What do you think? Okay, let's see. Let's ask ChatGPT. What percentage of the world can do a half marathon in under 1 hour and 40 minutes? So, globally, considering the entire adult population, including non-runners, is less than 1% of the world. Okay, so for the entire population, less than 1% of the world could currently run a half marathon under 1 hour and 40 minutes. That's pretty wild. Now, the average male half marathon time for people who have run is 1:55 to 2:05. Female is 2:05 to 2:20. I don't have non-binary on here, but should probably get that. So a 1:40 finish is well above average for both men and women, and it likely places a runner in the top 15 to 20% of all finishers, everyone who runs globally. And even higher when you include all adults who don't run at all. So basically, you're insane.
Whatever. SICKO is what...
You're sicko. You're sicko.
We went out to... we had pizza and stuff after with some friends, and one of the girls there was like, "You're sicko." Like, that time is sicko.
Not you're a sicko, just you're sicko. I loved it. So I'm going to use it a lot. But can you, like, how does that feel for you? Like,
sick.
Like, walk us through how that feels in terms of, like, where you've come from and doing something like that. Or doesn't that feel like?
I mean, if you've been following us on the pod since we started, I've talked about, I was, one of the back of the packers in high school track, in cross country, And I kind of just assumed that that's where I would always be. And, you know, then for those of you who know too, and I went into the ultra world and started doing more of like distance completion because I didn't think I would ever be fast. And then that was my way of like doing something unique and like getting that attention, I guess, without needing to be fast. And that led to me completing a 200 miler. And then after that is kind of when now I've gone back to trying to get faster. And I mean, I went from I never had a run plan, I didn't have a coach, I would just kind of go out and wing it. I would be able to complete marathons and be able to complete halves. But, you know, my longest training runs would be like 5 to 7 miles leading up to it. And now, after years of being consistent, I mean, this has not happened overnight. Like I said, I've been running since high school, but now, after the last couple of years of like actually being consistent with mileage, every time I hit a PR, it's kind of like breaking down a wall that I had put up in my mind. Like for me, so much of it has been mental. Like I had this deep set belief, like you're never gonna be fast, and I was okay with that. Like it wasn't like I was like sad about it. It was just like something that I believed. And now in the last couple of years, again, after like completing these long distances, now I've like done this rewind. And 2 weeks ago, I had mentioned this on the pod. It was happening, I think that night when I was doing the mile against my friend. And I got a 40-second PR in the mile from what I had previously had. This weekend, I had a little over a minute and a half PR. So PR meaning personal record. Like I beat my previous time from last year by over a minute and a half. And last year's time was a 14-minute PR from the year before that. And so I've had like some pretty significant jumps. And every time I like hit these goals, then it's like, okay, now what am I capable of? Like now that I know I can do this, now what can I do? And I really don't feel like it's in a toxic way. Like I feel like I'm in this very balanced area of like wanting to push myself, but also like really appreciating where I've come from and where I'm at right now and taking the time to celebrate that. And now that I've done this half, now I'm like, okay, now I'm good for at least this year. Like I'll do that again next year. And now I'm transitioning back into trails. And now it's time for Javelina 100-miler training. And I've been really enjoying the process. And I've also been the person who just tries to be like decent at everything, because then there's not really that disappointment factor if you're not really good at something. Because it's like, oh, well, it's not like I trained that hard anyways, so therefore it's okay. Like, I'll just be like kind of good at biking, I'll paddleboard, I'll do all these things, which I still can do, but it's fun, like, actually, like, focusing on one thing now. And that one thing happens to be running. And now I've realized, like, oh, when you do put all this time and effort into something, you can get so much better and a lot better faster. And it's fun. Like, I genuinely love it. And this weekend, it was so cool because we both were in Corral 1. So when you go, like, and you get up to the starting line, like, we were up by, like, all of the elite runners. I've never been that, like, close to the front in any race, even small races, let alone a race that has 10,000 runners at it. And we just got to, like, bypass everyone and lined up, you know, with Annie Frisbee, with Dakota Popane, like Olympian, like we were there. And at first I was kind of like, oh, should I be here? And then I was like, yeah, like you should be. And it's okay to like be lined up there. And, you know, this is not me bragging, but like I had finished in the top 3% of women and 7% overall. So from just like telling myself like, Kailee, you belong here, like, and it's okay. And that's been like some of the biggest realizations in the last couple of years is like you belong in these spaces. And I just keep learning this stuff over and over, and I'm finally starting to get more comfortable with that. But also staying humble and being like, I work really, really hard for this. Like, it didn't just come naturally to me. Like, I've, again, put in years of strength training. I put in years of mindset work. I've put in years of miles, and it's paying off. And I'm loving it. So,
I'm so proud of you.
thanks. Yeah, it's a blast, like actually challenging yourself. And I'm learning too, like with races, I used to be more of like the completion and be like, okay, I can just go out and do a marathon. Is it going to be pretty? No, but like I can do it. And now it's just so fun doing races because I'm genuinely enjoying the process of getting there. So when you do finish, like when you get to the start line even, I know in my head, like, this is just a celebration of the last, 6 months of training just to get here. And then when I get to the finish line, it's just like having that gratitude for the journey of it. And yeah, again, completion's great, but seeing how, just even how my body has changed, how my mind has changed, like, I just feel really good overall. And then as an acupuncturist who tries to like teach this to my patients, like I really feel like I'm very big in walking the talk, and it's very cool when that's all aligned. And my sleep was really good leading up to it. Stress levels were good. Like, what?
You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
You should be proud of yourself, and you should suck that in. We've maybe talked about this before. So, the corral. This is a great way. This is a great analogy to think about this. Have some water first, actually, before I go on a soapbox.
Grab your popcorn. He's coming.
There are a lot of runners that are athletes that are in. I'm going to use Corral A as an analogy, but like times, right? That are in Corral A, that are making improvements and working so freaking hard to make improvements. I am not selling any of that short, okay? There are a lot of coaches that are in Corral A that are making improvements. They are working very hard, probably just as hard, maybe harder than us, right? Again, I'm not selling short any of that. What I think is one of the strongest benefits of you and I and the message we create is that we started in Corral C. What was your first marathon time?
5 hours.
Do you remember your first half marathon time?
2:20. 2 hours and 20 minutes.
My first marathon was 4:36. I've had a marathon that was like 5.5. 5:30. My first marathon was 4:34, and then 5:37 or something was my slowest. My first half, I tried so freaking hard to break 2 hours, and we went like 1:59. That was so freaking hard. That was my first half. For the longest time, the marathon specifically, I remember thinking I would kill to break 4 hours. I'm never going to break 4 hours, but like I would trade anything to break 4 hours. Like I had a friend that did it after, I think it was his third, and it took me like 6 tries to finally break 4. Like I worked so hard to break 4. Again, I was in that corral. I've been in Corral C. And like in marathons where like I have to watch everyone else go and then wait 15 minutes, and then everyone goes, and then I wait 15 minutes, and you sit there, and I sat there and thought like, wow, that'd be so cool to be in one of those corrals, right? And it took years to get to the point for both of us where we are now in that corral. And I think one of the biggest changes we made was believing, maybe to a fault, that we could get there. Really. The odds were stacked against us. Like my fastest 5K PR in high school was a 21:20. I just split 2 minutes faster than that in a half marathon, and I have my marathon PR is faster than that pace, right? So you have, in high school and whatnot, you're like, okay, I've always been like, again, and that was my PR. In high school, I started at 30-minute 5Ks, right? So you just kind of get boxed into this group, and I think like I'm always gonna be there, right? Versus the person who was top of varsity or varsity, ran in college, ran their first marathon was a 2:40, worked hard and got to a 2:32, maybe sub 2:30, maybe even more, right? And we're just kind of always in that corral. Again, they are working hard too, for sure. It's a different hard than what we have done. And I think, again, that like one of the biggest benefits of working with us is we know that journey firsthand. And it's so easy to go, I want to hire a coach or a trainer or a life mentor or whatever that is where you want to be, and think just because they're there, they know how to get you there. But we don't look at the path they took, right? We hired I want to go sub 3 in a marathon, so we hired the person that's done sub 3 10 times. Have they ever not done sub 3? If you're a 3:30 person and you're trying to run sub 3, and you hire someone that's done sub 3 10 times, but they've never not done sub 3, those types of things. I think it's important, and I think that I'm getting more comfortable voicing that.
Yeah.
One more time, I'm not saying other people don't work hard. I'm saying I'm saying this from our perspective of why I think and how I'm becoming more confident in myself and us as a team too, of like, I know exactly what we offer. I know where we came from. And I know the people that are currently where we were, that want to be where we are, I know how to help them because I have done it. And I also have, we have the credentials to back it as well, but we have the life experience of going from that point to where we are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and working very, very hard to get there. And there was a time that I didn't believe that I would ever get there. I mean, I truly just believed that I would always be in the back. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean,
No,
I could have stayed like that forever and would have been like, it's not like I was sad about it. Like, I was totally content. Like, I had a lot of great friends, still do, that are at those times. But it's just been fun to push myself and like for us to like be on this journey. And when you do hit like this weekend, hitting that sub 140, it was just like kind of just like that full circle moment of like, wow, I worked so hard for this. And also knowing like, I mean, I truly believe that my ultra experiences have helped me so much with where I am now. I talk about this all the time about how like the ultra mindset of like the completion and just everything that it took mentally to get across the 200 finish line. I truly believe that has transformed all of these times because I have all of these different tools to use before the race, during the race, to get myself across that finish line, and knowing that I can do really, really hard things. And yeah, it could have been completely different if I'd started out at 15-minute 5Ks. Versus, again, I've never been that person, so I'm not speaking for that person, but coming from, where I was to now and developing these tools along the way. I believe that that's helping me now and also will help me for the rest of my life. Like, I want to be able to do this long term and for longevity. And, while hitting fast times are very cool, they're flashy. I was listening to Coach Bennett, who's the head Nike running coach. And, in it, he was saying that he has already run his fastest mile. I don't know, he's 40, 50 years old probably. And he's like, I'm never going to hit a faster mile than what I already had. He's like, that's not being me being like down on myself or anything, but like me trying to chase that right now, he's like, that's dumb. Like, it's not going to happen. But he's like, but that doesn't mean that I haven't hit my best mile yet. And he's like, best means so much more than just a time. And so, like, I think both of us have that, like, mindset too of, yes, of course, hitting these PRs is so fun right now. But I know that's not going to be forever either. Like, I'm completely aware of that. Like, going from cutting off 14 minutes for my half last year, a minute and a half was still a significant jump, but I'm never going to have a 14-minute cut anymore. But that doesn't mean that I'm not good anymore, not worthy. And he was saying, the best could be, his best mile could still be, it was the most beautiful mile he's ever run. He overcame the most during that mile, like leading up to that mile, or during that mile, he was with, all the people he loved. Like, there's just so many more ways to look at it than just time. So I just want to like also highlight, it's not like, it's about all of it. And but also saying like, because of my training, like that's why this is also so exciting, because both of us have put in that work. And I do feel like that was my best executed half marathon that I've ever done.
Yeah.
And
Snaps.
We've been doing snaps lately. So yes, the time was a positive result of the effort of running my best half marathon. And
it's not always that way either.
It's definitely not always that way. And he was saying that on the podcast too. I mean, you could have your fastest time ever, and it could have been your worst race ever. Like, so just because you're hitting certain times does not mean that it's the best. But I'm especially proud of Grandma's this weekend because I worked very hard for it. And during the race, so for those of you who don't know, like there were storms early morning on Saturday, and I didn't even know if we were going to be able to have the race because there were supposed to be 60-mile-per-hour winds, like 2-inch hail. And I was like, great, like all of the mile marker balloons are going to be in Lake Superior. The whole finish line is going to be blown over. And so they pushed it back a half hour, and we did end up obviously getting to have it. But during it, I was just thinking how grateful I was that we were even getting to run. Because, 2 years ago at TCM, like that, the whole race was just canceled. And there's the saying, like, you can't feel grateful at the same time as feeling, so like fear, like sadness. And so one of the things I was focusing on during the race was gratitude for being able to run the race. Gratitude that I, came back from my leg injury last month and could even get to the start line. Gratitude knowing that I can do it when there's so many people in my life that can't do it, and thinking of relatives. And I'm big on, running miles for people. And I was even thinking of some of my patients that have like Achilles issues and like weren't able to get to the start line. And I was like, Kailee, like it's so cool that you're even here with all of these people. And that immediately like gets rid of the pain. It doesn't last forever. But it is one of like my most powerful tools, and something I use during ultras too. Like when things are getting really, really hard, it's like, Kailee, like you get to be doing this. And I just had a lot of those moments and just kept going back to that gratitude practice. And yeah, and like I went into it thinking it was going to be hard too. And I think that's the other thing that I've like, why I'm getting these times and like getting better too, is before, like I didn't want to be super uncomfortable. I wanted to go into it being like, yeah, I could hold this for forever, like hold this pace. And now to go back to Coach Bennett also, like when I talked to him a couple months ago at our Flapjack Friday run, like he was talking about like how we need to take risks and I've kind of been playing it safe. And with this race, I was like, no, I'm going to go out harder than I ever have. And if I can't hold it, like you guys, like if you go into a race and you're like, I don't know if I can hold it for that long. So you drop back. So you run 10 to 20 seconds slower. So you have to walk. Okay.
At least you tried.
Yeah, at least
Like,
nobody cares.
Brave enough to try it.
Exactly. And if you can hold that, how cool is that? And what like a huge like boost. And again, if you can't do it, that does not make you a failure. It just means at this time, at this day, you weren't able to do it. But you tried. You got to the start line. You tried to hold it. You even thought you were capable of doing that. Like, that's saying something in itself right there. And I started faster than I ever have. In the middle of the race, I did drop down 10, 15 seconds. And I was like, oh, shoot, this is not what I want to be doing right now. But instead of getting down on myself and being like, okay, I'm a failure, like, this is it now. Talking myself through it, like, okay, you banked time at the beginning. And everyone else is struggling here, but try to stay with the person that's right in front of you. Like, just hold their pace. And again, like, making it not about yourself. And so then I was following this guy wearing all black clothes and just like trying to keep up with him. And then slowly started getting faster again and using my mantras. Like for this race, my mantras were, I am ready, I am capable, I am strong. And I just kept repeating that to myself because I respond very well to that positive feedback. And I encourage you to try it. Like instead of telling yourself how much you suck during a race and that your training was subpar, that you're not doing well, like that's not going to get you anywhere during these races or your competitions, whatever you're doing. Even in work, like if you're telling yourself that stuff, like that's going to be your story. Like what's the story that you want to be telling yourself, and would you be allowing other people to be telling you that stuff during a race? Like be your own coach. How would you be coaching somebody else that's you? And I guarantee you would not be coaching people the way that you are coaching yourself. So think about that. And that's why, like, on the bus ride to the start, too, I was writing down some of my notes. Like, what story do you want to tell tomorrow? I was writing down my mantras. And I think that's so beneficial because that's what I focused on the race. And I was, again, over and over, is like, you can do hard things. You were meant to do hard things. And then that translates to everything in life. That's my soapbox.
I agree.
Walk me through your race.
Thanks, great.
Like,
yeah, I had a very different experience than Bay, which I think is great.
yeah.
We get to have a nice 50-50 experience. Yeah, I mean, mine, I think it was one of those, like, I don't know, kind of a lot of things we've talked about a little bit already, but so my half PR, I ran 1:30.01. I didn't realize it was going to be 01. I actually thought it was above 1:30, so it wasn't like I was like trying super hard to get under 1:30, but I was trying at that point. But I thought I'd lost it. Freaking chip times, by the way, or clock times. I will say that they can be very frustrating because, and maybe this is a good example too of how you shouldn't always think about timing and you should just push yourself harder. When I saw the clock, it was past 1:30. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna run 1:30.05, whatever. Which, maybe there's something to be said about how you should just push anyways. Had I saw that it was as close to 1:30.01, I definitely would have ran harder at the very last. Like, I definitely could have ran 1 second faster, or two, whatever it is. But whatever.
That's a good learning experience.
But I've done that twice now, where I need to because what I run at CIM 3:10.04, something like that.
12, 10.
It was O.
Like
No, it was O. I think it was 07 maybe. It was right at that again. But 01 is even more ridiculous. Like, so I've done it enough time. I've done it twice now where it's like, okay, Jacob, you're gonna have to figure out how to watch your watch better or something in those last like 2 miles to push harder, because time can be motivator. But my PR was 128.12, and I set out to hold 6:30 pace, which is like 125.36, something like that. And it's one of those things where like I knew that was very aggressive, but I definitely believe I can do that. At the same time, like I could have gone out at 128 pace. I could have gone out at 640 pace. Had I done that, I bet I would have at least ran like 128 or maybe 129. Like I do think it would have ended up being a faster race. I think because I shot for 125, I ended up at 130, whereas I could have like maybe been more conservative and ended up maybe not with a PR, but sub 190 for sure, I think, because it would have got harder later, and things like that. But so there, and I'm going to put my coaching hat on for a second here and say, like, there are a lot of factors at play. And, like, I talked to Matt about this, and I'm going to be careful how I say this, but I do think there's some truth to it. Like, I don't do amazing in humidity. And I'm not going to say, like, that's necessarily because of certain reasons or whatever, but there are factors at play of, like the fact I just don't do good in humidity. I'm just gonna leave it at that. And maybe that's a limiting mindset too,
Yeah,
right?
So my two cents on heat. And
I think that I need to. I was talking to Matt. I was like, I need to train in heat more so I can get more, and not just tell myself I don't do good in humidity. But I know that, from a coaching perspective, like the humidity was like 100% or 90% or some shit. Like it was wild, and. Look, I'm 6'4", I'm 200 pounds. Like, I was soaked in sweat by mile 1. I'm not going to use that as an excuse, but it is something to just like other people were too, right? But, like, I'm the dude that if I go into a gym and it's hot, I'm sweating in 2 minutes, like, immediately. Like, I sweat a lot. So there's just things like that I wasn't prepared for, and I should have been more prepared for it, right? There's that. I paced it a little incorrectly. Matt was like, go out at 6:35 pace and then go and stay above 6:30, maybe run some 6:30s, whatever, but you don't need to go into sub 6:30 pace. So what I do are my first mile at 6:27 pace right off the bat. So I didn't run my first 6:35 mile or above until like mile 4. So there's that too.
And
I paced it wrong.
Like a couple seconds might not seem like a lot, but
it's not necessarily the physical thing. It's the fact that like mentally you split 6:27 when you're supposed to split 6:35, and now you start playing this, oh shit, I just went out too fast in my mind cart. So now I feel out of control. But there's also like in the race I was like, fuck it, whatever, we'll see what happens, which I think can be good too. But there's a lot of like mental stuff now you're battling, right? And I was telling myself like, pull back, slow down, let them pass. And there are people passing you, so now you're getting that mental thing going. Like, again, I think one of the reasons I've been racing a lot more this year is because these mental things that I'm dealing with during races at this specific like spot I'm at right now need to be worked on. That's why we're racing. Like, we're not really focused as much on the times. It's like, what are you doing when it gets hard? What are you doing when people pass you? Are you covering these moves? Things like that. That's why we're racing a lot. And I've only executed that good like one time so far, and hence why we're doing this more. So, kind of lost my train of thought, but I think that's like the coaching aspect of it. Of like, there are different things that were going on, and I'm not going to beat myself up too much about it. But at like mile 4 or 5, it started to get hard, and I didn't have it, wasn't prepared for it, whatever. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I'm like, I didn't want it enough again. So it's kind of getting rooted to that why more, and I went to like 7:10, 7:12, 7:14, and I was running 7:30 mile, and when I'm on a 6:30 pace and a half and you drop, that's a minute slower. Like, it's a big drop and a half. That in itself was like, what is that? 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, right? That adds up quick over the span of 4 miles, right? If you're trying to run that, whatever time you're trying to run. And I remember thinking that like, oh, I might just wait until Kailee or someone that I know catches up to me and, passes me. And I was really sick of running alone. I was like in between two packs. I didn't know anyone around me. Again, these are like things I'm just learning about myself that Matt and I are like, we need to figure out how to change this. Either you need to be comfortable running alone or you need to find people at your pace and go run with a pack. So we're working on both and figuring out what that's going to look like. But yeah, when I get alone, I'm just like, I don't like this. This is not fun, right? As opposed to like when I'm with someone, it's like we have a common goal, common mission. I want to get this done together, right? And then Matthew from Mill City, shout out, he caught up to me and he was trying to go sub 90. And he was like, and at this point, the 90 pacer had passed both of us. But he caught up to me because I was running 7:30 plus pace at this point. And we've got 3 miles to go, I think, something like that. And he's like, Jacob Oak, which she always does. And I was like, oh, bet, a friend. And so I stayed with him. And I dropped pace to his, which was like 6:50. I think we did that next mile at. And then we were running. We went through the Mill City crowd. Now it's like the energy's there, right? So I went through like the dead zone and really mentally struggled, which, again, that's the learning opportunity. You have to have it in those dead zones because once you get out of it, the energy will carry you. So you have to figure out how you can get through those dead zones. That's what we're working on. And sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. But anyways, so then Matthew, we were running and I saw the 130 pacer like 25, 20 seconds ahead, maybe 15. I don't know. A good chunk. And I was like, Matthew, we're going to catch that 130. And he was kind of like running and you could tell he was in pain and I was in pain. And we just worked together and went and caught the 130 together. I went 130.01, but he went 129 high because of chip time, gun time again. So, once I had that common goal, then I was on cloud 9 having a blast running that in with a friend. So yeah, I think there's a lot of takeaways. I was on my feet the entire day of the day before. I got up at 3 a.m. I moved the van and stuff, but a lot of that stuff, the reality is that like Kailee PR'd fine. So, and she did all the same stuff. So I'm not like, I don't really want to use that as an excuse. Like in my mind, when it got really hard, I did not have it enough. I think. At the same time, I can't beat myself up that bad because, like, at mile like 7, my leg, like going up Lemon Drop felt so hard, and that was my 7:30 mile. Lemon Drop has never felt that hard. Like that felt harder than it has in marathons for me. So I think there is something there of like maybe I did go out too fast. Like there is like the scientific, like I might have been too lactic at that point, and my body was clearing it at that pace, and that's why I could drop back down then. Because Lemon Drop was like really hard. I also only did 1 gel this race, and normally I do 3 or 4.5. I'm experimenting with different things. Maybe that was part of it. I got that boost like 10 minutes after that gel I took towards like mile 6 or 7 or whatever. So I think there's a lot of things at play, but like, I mean, the reality of it is we do this sport to push ourselves and have fun, test limits, test boundaries, right? And I just ran a 1:30.01 and 2 years ago, I would have been ecstatic about that time. Like I blew up and ran a 1:30.01. Like, I'm not going to complain about that. That's pretty freaking awesome. And like, it was a really good run. I got better from that. You often learn more in your failures or setbacks or whatever than you do in the wins anyways, right? Of like, okay, this is where I need to change things for the next time, right? And the average is going up, right? And I think too, it's like, and you're learning this as well, I'm assuming. We've kind of talked about this, but like back to that whole journey of going from 2-hour half marathon to a sub 130, right? The jump from 140 to 130 was definitely easier than the jump from 130 to 128. That was so much harder. And now the jump from 128 to 125 is going to be really, really hard. Like it, as you grow and things get harder, to get to the next level, it gets harder. It requires more. And so I think that's the other thing. And mentally right now, I think I have finally started to get to a point where I'm accepting that like this is going to be very, very hard if I want to get like a sub 3 hour marathon, which I'm more concerned about a sub 3 hour marathon than I am about 125 and a half too. Like once I broke 90, I was like, cool. But the sub hour 3 hour marathon, like Matt said to me, he's like, dude, like the training for this is going to be harder than the actual race. Like you have to be dialed and working very hard in the training, and you're going to be fatigued and tired like all the time, right? And in those moments when you are fatigued and tired, that's what you're training through in speed workouts on those tired legs and stuff, so that when you get to the race, then you have it and you're ready. And I think that I have to just kind of accept that, like, this again, this might sound bad, and I don't mean it to, but like my training wasn't that hard, or it was hard at the time, but now, like, the next level training is so hard for me, and like mentally more than anything. It's like instead of 6x400, like I'm doing like 10x400 or whatever, or 12x400, and like starting a workout and knowing you have another 10 of them instead of like you do one and you're like, okay, I got 5, I can do 5. Like being like, I have 10 of those. That is so mentally taxing on me, at least, and so hard. And it's like those types of things in training right now that are like physically, it's like the mental exhaustion that is just really, really hard. So yeah.
I have a few takeaways from that.
Oh boy.
No, good things. But I think something that's important to remember, and I feel like this is something that I've developed with ultras and dealing with lots of different conditions for the race, is accepting what is out of your control and what is within your control. The humidity on Saturday, completely out of our control. The storms that we had, out of our control. The sleep we had, out of our control. What was within our control was our sleep leading up to the race. Like, I knew we weren't going to get a bunch of sleep Friday night because Grandma starts at the crack ass of dawn.
Right.
And I knew we were going to be sleeping in a camper van. So I was like, okay, I know I don't have control over Friday night, but I do have control over this week ahead of time. The weather, what's within your control is heat training by using the sauna, practicing in the heat, like running in the heat, having appropriate clothing, having the right electrolytes. Like, those are things that I know that are within my control. And I think, like, I'm not saying just ignore the weather and ignore the conditions, but just remembering, like, I'm not saying you're blaming it, because, again, everyone is affected. And I maybe would have run a couple minutes faster, too, if the weather hadn't been like that. But just learning, like, this is just for, like, future things, too. Like, instead of, like, fighting it, being like, okay, like, this is all not within my control, but what is? And at least for me, that makes me feel like so much, like, more empowered to know, like, okay, I have control over my nutrition, I have control over my sleep, like,
Right.
Because it is very easy to, like, again, not saying you're doing this, but just, like, to play kind of like the blame game almost, and be like, well, my race is gone because of all these other things.
Well, and that's why, like, that's why I think it was good for, like, the reason that I'm not really blaming that stuff is because, like, I remember thinking, like, I'd be fine slowing down here. Like, I'm fine slowing down to 8 or 8:30. That's why I'm not blaming it.
Yeah.
If I've had race settings before where you are in those situations and you go, like, this is really hard, I'm gonna hold what I can. If that means that I'm holding 7:10, but it feels as hard as 6:30, then that means I'm, working as hard as I can.
We switch to effort based when these things happen. Like, I'm still gonna give the effort of my 6:30 that I was trying for. If that 6:30 now feels like a 7:10, that is still a win.
Right. And I feel like there are moments in that race where I didn't do that. That's why I'm saying, like, I can't just blame the conditions, and I got pretty good sleep. Yeah. Like, leading up to the race and stuff, So I'm saying I can't really just blame the conditions. And besides like lemon drop, like there are still things to think about. Like, why did lemon drop
Yeah.
hurt my legs so
But
bad? I
it's
don't know.
just
But yeah,
again, it's crazy how much our mind just like is constantly fighting
right.
with
Oh yeah.
ourselves. It's wild. That again, that's why I love this stuff. I love like having my mind just like needing to like fight yourself is like such a wild thing.
Yeah. You also only have like the truth of the matter is too, what, 30% of races are going you're gonna finish them and be like, I did everything right. Everything right.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's something for people to remember too, of like that's why you're pushing yourself, especially when you're trying to get their personal records for a reason.
Right.
Like like
Shouldn't.
they are the best you have ever done. You
Yeah.
have to be the best you've ever been on that day. Like, you know. So I think that's this is again just me like saying like for the athlete in me, and like don't beat yourself up when things don't necessarily go the way they wanted you to, assuming like you were shooting for a realistic thing and stuff. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. I was also just gonna say like with the heat, like I've always been the person that like I mean, truly from growing up, like talking to my parents, like I've never been able to handle the heat well. Like I would get like heat strokes like as a kid where they'd have to like put me in like a cold bath because I would overheat so much. But I'm trying to work on my mindset of like trying to accept the heat, which two of my biggest reasons are one, I need to be good for heat in order to complete my 100 miler in October because it is in the desert in Arizona and it will be hot. So I don't really have a choice right now. So running on Saturday, in my mind the whole time I was thinking this is training for your next run. All of this is just training for life in general. Like I'm not training just to do a race and then it's just done. Like yes, be where you're at currently, but also I am looking at longevity here too. So I was accepting like I need to be running in heat right now. And then two, the earth is not cooling off anytime soon. Like if you live in Minnesota or really anywhere, like it's been in the 90s since May right now. So not to be morbid, but we're not cooling off here. So I was talking to Aaron, the owner of PRG today where I work, and he was like made a comment about how heat training is going to become just like another pillar of training like in the near future, just like your strength training and like your sleep. Like heat acclimation and training is going to be our next biggest thing. So
Yeah. That's why running some of the times for me at 2 in the afternoon is good.
yeah.
Even if it's just easy miles, because I'm like, oh my God, this is awful.
Yeah, and it's so easy. I mean, I've always been the person to be like, this sucks. I'm going to avoid the heat. I hate the heat. I can't do the heat. And well, some of that is true. I'm trying to change my mindset in that and develop a new relationship with it because it's definitely a lot easier to have that acceptance versus fighting it constantly. Like, okay, what can I do? Again, go back to what is it within my control to be able to deal with this heat.
You've inspired me.
My second takeaway is third takeaway. Talking about like people and stuff. Like again, this goes back to like for both of us, and I think for a lot of runners, like this is not just about ourselves as an individual. And for me, I've realized like I'm very good with the visualization aspect of it. Like that's why I love the mindset, the mental health, because I can visualize like being with other people while I'm running. Like I was visualizing like my mom being alongside of me because she's been at so many of my grandma's races and was at my first marathon, which was grandma's marathon back in 2012.
That's awesome.
And like I was picturing her there with me. I was picturing my grandma's. I was picturing my team up ahead at mile 24 at the Mill or at mile 11 for us at the Mill City Aid Station, and I knew they were there. And like I said before, like I was doing these miles for other people because it is not like we are meant to be in community. We are meant to be better together. And I think for you, again, it's just like learning like, okay, does Jacob need a Matthew next to him to get these paces? Or like what does this look like? And remembering that like what works for me or what works for Jacob like might be completely different for you, and that's okay. But it's fine. Like what does work for you? And we got a question on our one of our most recent Instagram reels about, how do you get up at 5 a.m. to go run? And what works for us, like, might be completely different for you. Like, do you need a group to get up with? Like, do you need a 6 a.m. run group or a strength class to go to in order for you to show up? Or is it you need a cup of coffee in the morning? Like, that's what you look forward to. Like, each individual, just like, it's important to find what works best for you. And just remembering, like, it doesn't need to be the same as everybody else or what we're saying. These are just some things that, like, have worked for us and gotten us through races. What's here we get to do this moment?
Talking to you.
And?
When I was standing at the end of the half marathon finish and watching, I mean, myself, of course, but like Matthew, Schwarm, Kyle, Eric, you, Ela, Elliot,
Eric?
Elliot,
Like,
Elliot.
I feel like we're in kindergarten.
I hope he's
We're
not
your
listening to this
friends.
podcast because I'm definitely blanking on his name right now. But like the other Mill City people and stuff, like other people that I knew, and seeing Kelly come through, other my clients and stuff, like there's so much joy on so many people's faces, and these times they're cool and I want to chase them, but like fuck, like I got the community aspect down. I'm just so grateful about that. Like I'll run a fucking 1:30 any day of the week if it means that I get to like see how everyone else come through with big smiles on their face, and like we're just all having fun. Like this is supposed to be fun, and it was. So
Yeah, mine was also just all day Saturday. Like, again, being able to even start the race.
the malt you had,
The malt I had was so good.
watching me dance.
So depleted. Watching Jacob dance. Yeah, the Mill City cheer station is just such a vibe, and there was a DJ, people were dancing, and just the joy that the marathoners were getting from running through the aid station. Like, you could just see the emotions like crossing their face. And there were a few times where like I started to tear up because I know what that pain is like at mile 24 of a marathon, and with the heat that was going on and just like everything you've overcome, and just seeing them like pick up the pace and run through and get high fives from the entire Mill City cheer zone was so cool. Like, they were doing it for the fast people, they were doing it for the people who were behind that. Like, it's for everyone, and they have the same joy for everyone. And it's like, this is what this is about. We're very lucky. We get to do this.
Time for me to get to go and work with some clients.
Woo! Thanks for
Good
listening,
episode.
y'all.
Congrats to everyone that ran this weekend.
Yeah, congrats, everyone. Go do Grandma's next year because
50th.
a blast, and it's the 50th year. Okay, bye.
Wow, Kaylee, we made it through another episode. What do you think?
We would love if you would go give us a follow, a 5-star review, and comment on the episode and what you liked and what you'd like to see more of.
See you next time.
We get to do this.